phone died. I have it charged now. We'll finish up this conversation. We were pretty close to the end, anyways. Uh,
Sorry
Yeah,
about that, man.
no worries, man. Sorry, I was on a little bit of a rant there, man, but I was actually just coming up to the end there. So, what are your thoughts, man, on like some of the stuff I was talking about just now?
Oh, yeah, well, I've been a fan of the whole blockchain technology and that whole technology space. I want to be participating in it, contributing to it. But specifically, when it comes to the voting aspect of the whole thing, I think where blockchain and this technology fits most naturally is ensuring that once the votes are cast, every
Hmm.
single one is counted and counted accurately.
Okay.
That particular portion of the whole voting situation is inarguably a great fit for the blockchain technology and this whole space. The decentralized digital identity aspect of it, verifying who in a certain jurisdiction is and isn't a true voter. I am interested in seeing potential ways in which this could be done, but unfortunately, I think that aspect of it still just has to be done by flesh and blood human beings that even if they even if they give the permission to if you have say a council of 5 people or something that give the permission to make you a real voter, they could still do that for people that aren't real voters. And so when it comes to falsifying the ballots, so to speak, to making fake ballots or ballots for dead people and having all those sort of elements at play, without any kind of a biological integration, which gets into a whole bunch of other sets of issues, I'm having a hard time seeing how it could play out and work. But I think we need to learn and explore how we can possibly do it.
Yeah, so that's a great like point. So let me preface this by saying, blockchain. If blockchain was not the most secure database that is in existence, then Bitcoin would have already been hacked. And while individual wallets and exchanges have been hacked, the actual Bitcoin protocol has never been hacked. So blockchain is the most secure database we have. So there are ways to verify that you're dealing with a real human, whether that's like going to be scanning someone's iris, which we definitely all have the ability to do now, with mobile phones, whether that's a fingerprint or whatever may have you. There are ways to do it to make sure. So am I saying that we should rush the process? Absolutely not. But I do think, with the technology, there's definitely ways to do it and make it more secure. But in the long run, the benefit of it isn't limited to only voting. The benefit of it is because, all right, data is one of the most valuable things in the world, right? Google is making money off our data. Facebook is making money off our data, but we don't get a slice of that. Decentralized identity is a way to kind of centralize, not centralize, but is a way to kind of empower the individual to take control of their data, to monetize their data. And it's also a very powerful tool in empowering creators in the ways I just described. So I do think there is a lot of benefits to it, but it can't be rushed and it has to be done the right way. But I can assure you, it's definitely possible to make sure you're dealing with a human and to protect people's privacy, because if it's being stored on a decentralized server and it's not an centralized server, we can see who's accessing it and for what reason. And there's a paper trail to whoever's accessing it. So, like, say, for example, in Estonia, if a doctor wants to access your medical files because of the way they have their decentralized identity, set up over there, they have to ask for your permission or ask for one of your family members' permission to be able to access your medical records. They have to explain why they're doing it. And then you have the option to approve or to deny that. So if, like the FBI, say, for example, wanted to pull, someone's records and see all the people they've called and your data was stored on decentralized identity, then you would get notified, that law enforcement is accessing your stuff, or something like that, depending on what the reason is they're doing it. Like, obviously, if they're conducting an investigation, you may not be notified until after the fact. But point being, in this current system, they may destroy, the evidence, or destroy whatever it is, the original affidavit, that they have before, or they may alter it, and we don't know what the real thing is. But blockchain is the most secure ledger we have. And if that wasn't the case, then Bitcoin would have been hacked already. So, It's just something to consider.
No, the security is unquestionable, but with, say, like a Bitcoin and the limited number of coins that are in existence, that's established at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And so for this type of a system, we would need the voter base to be established and some way of updating it as people are born, turn 18, and then can vote. And so that process has to be sorted out. And I would love to see it tried.
Humans need to be involved on that side. So that I agree with. Yes.
Yeah. And so I'd love to see, Miami probably will be the first one to do it, but I'd love to see local American governments try it and try to start implementing these things to see how it might work. Because it's definitely very powerful for enhancing voting transparency, trust, and security.
Yeah.
Which, if we don't believe our elections are legitimate, therefore our leaders are legitimate, therefore their governments and their laws are legitimate. Trust in
the system. Yeah.
It brings the whole system down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, that's the last thing we want, because if we and we're already at the point where a lot of people don't trust it, but if we don't find a way to reestablish that trust, then you're going to get to the point where, the people just have enough and, want to get rid of, the oppressors. And,
we fall into anti-communism, which is anarchy, in the political sense. And I've been a fan of their. So one caveat to any political ideology that I'll support, or philosophy or moral system, is it has to functionally work with human nature. It cannot exist in conflict with it, and you're just telling people to be better than they are. You can't rely on that. And so my test case for anarchy to work is the same one for communism to work. Show me where it's ever worked and not turned to absolute disaster.
Yeah, the only thing I can say is, to be honest with you, I really think you're going to enjoy that book, man, because I think one of the things blockchain does is it empowers people in a way where it actually makes a lot of libertarian ideals, in my opinion, a lot more functional and a lot easier to track, in the real
a lot more workable.
Yeah, a lot more workable. So, I'd really encourage you to check it out. And if you do get the book, let me know your thoughts, when you get a chance to read it. But one thing I do want to say, though, is human nature does change, given the environment. Human nature does change over time. And if you look at what I mean by that, when people were trying to fly and, figure out how do we get in the sky, they would have told you it's not in man's nature to fly. This is how, if people could fly, God would have given us wings. And then, then we figured out how to make jets, spaceships, and all this other stuff. And, back in the day, gladiators, it was acceptable to go to a show where you're going to watch a person die. And while there may be one or two places where you can go watch like an illegal street fight, even those places, you aren't expecting someone to die. It might happen every now and then, but you're not expecting it to happen. And it has to be done behind closed doors. If you look at, 2,000 years ago, grown men were getting married to 11 and 12-year-old girls. And, we were saying, this is part of human nature. As soon as a girl gets her period, she's ready to have sex. So, I would say that human nature does change over time. And I would say a lot of our current attitudes are shaped by the fact that we've dealt with scarcity and we've never been able to automate abundance the way we have now. And I do think if things move in the right direction, then a lot of us might have a different feeling about what it means when we describe human nature 50 to 100 years from now. Just my personal opinion. So
No, I agree that humans can transcend their nature to live towards higher ideals, that we're fundamentally accountable, and that society can evolve. It's sort of, so I believe in microevolution. It's just humans have such a broad and open-ended nature that a lot of evolution is possible as we move along and as the generations come forth. But you know, certain things like if we create a system that's completely dependent on people being perfectly peaceful and generous, it's just going to fall apart. You know, you have to contend with human nature to some degree. So it's like our system of, if you're violent, we put you away and remove you from society. Eventually we can kind of breed it out of ourselves by isolating those aspects of humanity and not giving them conjugal visits.
well, yeah, I was going to say humans have gotten a lot less violent over time. And yes, we still have wars and all that, but you know, overall, you know, people like violence is like less.
As a percentage of the population, the number of us that are dying because of that is less and less and less. And
exactly.
I'm all for that becoming like that being the trend that continues. Absolutely. I fully support it.
And you know,
I'll allow it.
And the reason that is because the overall resources have become more accessible. And by that, I mean, the way we can walk into a supermarket now and, you know, like buy food, as poisoned as it is, you know, we've never had this ability before. And, you know, people are on average living much better now than we were 100 or 200 years ago, even though you can debate the morals, you know, and all that and how those things have changed. The quality of life has gone up. Like, it's better to be, if you're a poor person now, you have a much longer life expectancy, you know, like than you would have, you know, 100 years ago. So I think we're going to continue in that direction and just finding ways to lift up the people at the bottom while still balancing, incentivizing hard work and accomplishment. I think that's what, you know, we want to try and figure out, you know, how do we get that out of this system? Make sure the weakest links are not left to break the whole chain, but we're still incentivizing people to be productive and contribute.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to end it, man. I think.
Yeah.
Well, this was an amazing conversation. I'm very happy that I asked you to come on. I'm very happy you said yes. We'll definitely do it again, especially once we have a bit more pieces. I mean, there's plenty of history, but a bit more recent and in the moment pieces of news to chew on. And yeah, man, you have an amazing day. God bless you. And yeah, have a good one.
You too, man. I'm going to be inviting you on my podcast soon, man. So, you know, keep an eye on your DMs, man. I'd love to have you on the show, man. Thank you for having me on, Jordan. Have a great night, all right?
You too, man. Bye-bye.
All right. Take it easy, man. Later. Deuces.